there is no question. It has been the case, it is the case, and as long as there's an evangelical movement, it'll be the case, that we are profoundly offended and we are horrified that our nation allows about 1.2 million American citizens to be killed every year before they have a chance to be born.
Like the majority of Americans, I am alarmed at the tragically high abortion rate in this country, which I believe is a deeply moral issue. But as we address the sanctity of life, we also must have a consistent ethic of life that carries all the way from womb to tomb. The Bible has over 2,000 verses that show God's concern for the poor. In Jesus' opening sermon at Nazareth, he said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor." 30,000 children died yesterday, will today, and again tomorrow from completely needless hunger and utterly preventable disease. That breaks the heart of God and should break our hearts too.
I want to help poor children, but I can't help them if they're killed before they're born. We have to get them here before we can help them.
We must not pit the unborn against the poorest children of the earth. They are both among the weak, who should be our central concern.
The Genesis account is very clear. God created the earth. It's important to him. In Genesis 9, he made a covenant with every living thing. We should respect all life, but we must reverence human life. And there is a difference in kind between human beings and the rest of creation. Human beings are the most important value, and we must always put the welfare and benefit of human beings first.
And the alarming rate of climate change is becoming a life issue too for many evangelicals. A crisis, you might say, of biblical proportions that threatens many human lives, but especially the poorest and most vulnerable. The environment is now clearly on the mainstream of the evangelical agenda, especially among a younger generation. They call it creation care.
We have a responsibility for creation care. There's no question about that. But I believe that we can start there, but then we're going to have some prudential disagreements about the best way to address that issue.
Stewardship is our ethic. It is our ethic. But if we're going to be God's stewards of the creation, we have to, as Christians, be completely opposed to the rampant consumerism of our society, which is contrary to being stewards of God's good creation.
The reason under God's Son that people have freedom and dignity anywhere in the world today and anywhere in the 20th century is because of the armed might of the United States and the courage of our men and women under arms and their willingness to fight for other people's freedom as well as their own.
Security depends on more than military might, but also on other people's security, their well-being, and a hope that replaces anger and fear. A world where half of the people live in extreme poverty is neither just nor secure.
People who were regular church attenders and people who described themselves as conservatives gave more of their own money to both secular and religious charities than people who described themselves as secular and people who described themselves as liberals.
I agree with Richard. Conservative Christians are good givers. That's true. God is a generous God, and we want to be generous people. But the God of the Bible is not just a God of charity. The God of the Bible is a God of justice. And the prophets speak to princes, rulers, employers, about widows and orphans and workers and those left out and left behind, and they speak on behalf of land, labor, and capital. Let's be generous people. But let's talk about the God of justice who wants the structures of the world to also reflect the goodness and sovereignty of God.